Hi, I'm Pete Keller with Republic Services, and I'm here with Dan Bennett to talk to you about Republic Services' sustainability report. One of the key goals in our sustainability report is a reduction in overall greenhouse gas emissions, and obviously our fleet plays a major role in the impacts that we have in and around emissions. Republic Services operates the 7th largest vocational fleet in North America. We have some 16,000 trucks on the road today, servicing 5.8 million customers on a daily basis. So Dan, I was hoping that we could talk a little bit about our fleet, talk a little bit about the mix of fuels that we're using and some of the initiatives we have in and around alternative fuels, and also some of the programs we have in our shops, as it relates to some of the consumables and some things that we're doing with some of those items to be a little bit more innovative and sustainable.
Sounds good. So we can start with fuel. Sure. I would say that CNG has been a priority for us for a number of years, and I would tell you that between 100% in some markets we're running CNG as opposed to diesel, 90% plus in others, and we continue to expand that. So where we have capacity, meaning we have an infrastructure in place already for CNG within a facility, and still maintain some diesel trucks there. Every year we replace those diesel trucks with alternative fuel vehicles. We'll continue to do that. I think for us, we see it as a couple of different things that we benefit from. One is it's good for the environment, and two, it gives us an alternative to diesel, which makes us less dependent on foreign oil. All in all, it's a positive thing. We continue to do it, and we're seeing good results from our alternative fuel strategy.
So probably something that folks don't think of very often, but just the type of fuel in a truck and what that might mean for a driver. You've been in a diesel truck, you've been in a CNG. Oh yeah, and you've been in a CNG truck. So can you describe a little bit, just in terms of noise and in terms of maybe even the associated air around the truck and things like that?
So CNG vehicles burn cleaner than diesel vehicles. So the impact on the air around the truck, it comes out much cleaner. It's much better for the environment. The NOx is much lower, so much better for the atmosphere in general. From a driver's perspective, they're fueled differently. So when a driver returns to the yard at the end of the shift, a diesel truck would fuel as you would fuel at a gas station. Right. A CNG vehicle is different. So they feel slower depending on the type of nozzle you have, and it's a different connection. So there's a little training that goes along with the driver.
How would you describe the relative noise level in a cab?
Much quieter.
Much
so yeah, diesel, if you pull up next to a diesel truck at any red light or in any gas station or drive-through window, it's noisy. You can tell a diesel vehicle almost immediately. CNG runs much quieter, similar to what you would hear in a car.
So you think about some of these urban areas that we service, and a lot of these commercial routes start at 2, 3 in the morning. More and more mixed use in some of these downtown corridors. So businesses topped by multifamily condos, apartment complexes. What does a quieter vehicle mean in that environment at 2 in the morning?
So it's interesting. It's actually a differentiator. So in some markets, customers are requiring us to move to alternative fuel vehicles for that reason. People are sleeping. We're there in the middle of the night. It's noisy. Right, so the reduction in noise is viewed as a positive by a lot of customers in a lot of municipalities. So it's helped us in that front tremendously.
So one of the things that I found very exciting earlier this year, we were able, through some strategic partnerships that we have, we were able to negotiate an agreement that we could fuel the majority of our CNG trucks, which I believe today represents about 20% of our total fleet, with a renewable product that's commercially available in most all the markets we serve. Could you talk a little bit about renewable versus?
So renewable is not necessarily very new, but fairly new to us. Renewable is basically just repurposing existing fuel. So whereas now it's all coming fresh from the pipeline, this is actually taking repurposed fuel and using it again. So in the spirit of sustainability, I don't know that there's much that's better than reusing something that's already been used.
Yeah, from a greenhouse gas perspective, I mean, there's huge benefits whenever we're putting renewable fuels in our trucks. So now transition into the shop. When I mentioned consumables, obviously oil, brakes, tires, those types of things. Can you talk about some of the innovation and some of the things that we're doing to reduce our impacts in the shop?
So I can go with two. So oils and tires are probably two of our biggest. If you think about managing a fleet in 16,000 plus trucks, tires and oil are fairly significant components. With oils, we've extended the oil intervals on our trucks significantly as it relates to the market, and we've done it through a couple of different things. One is we've switched the viscosity of the oil. So we've gone from a heavier weight oil to a semi-synthetic oil, which allows us to, one, use less oil in the making of the actual product itself, and it also is thinner, so the engine doesn't have to work as hard to move it. By doing that, we're enabling ourselves to take oil samples instead of just dropping the oil. So we have in our PM schedule, our preventive maintenance schedules, certain activities that are performed every time a truck comes in the shop, and one of those includes an oil sampling test. And what that does is basically it's like going to the doctor for a physical. It's a health check for the engine, and it basically tells us if everything is running the way that it should. If it is, it tells us the health of the oil. So if the oil is still good, we don't change it. We continue to run the truck, and that's allowed us to push, all those things have allowed us to push the life of the oil 300% and the intervals 50%. So you could imagine that on 16,000 trucks, we are consuming much less oil than we would have been in the past. So it helps us on a shop capacity perspective, but it also doesn't allow us to push as much waste oil into the market.
Yeah. What becomes of that waste oil?
You can use waste oil for a bunch of things. And sometimes it goes back and gets cleaned. Sometimes you can use it for heating. I've even seen where you can heat shops with it. So there's waste oil heaters. There's a whole bunch of purposes for waste oil. Our goal is to use less of it so that we're producing less waste oil.
For sure. And then what about tires?
So we do a lot around tires, and tires is probably I want to say it's our third biggest expense in the shop. Heavy trucks, not necessarily flat roads, so we go through a lot of tires. What we've done is partner with suppliers. So in the case of tires, whereas you could view other categories as non-strategic, we believe in partnering with our tire providers. What that gives us is input into the design of the tire, both the tread pattern, the tread compound, and the type of the tire. By doing that, we're enabling ourselves to take more rubber out, be part of discovering what tread patterns last better in certain geographies, and we're seeing 25% longer life on the tire. That helps on a whole bunch of levels, both the manufacturing point of view, the consumer being us, and then the disposal of tires. And disposing of tires is not an easy process. It's dirty, it's not good for the environment. Right. So we're trying to extend that, produce fewer disposable tires, and enabling us to run longer life on the existing tires. Our retread program allows us to take new cap and casings after they run out and put a couple inches of new rubber on them and run them again, right. 3 or 4 different times. Oh. So by doing that, our consumption of new steers and new tires is much lower, and the amount that we're putting in the disposal market is significantly reduced.
Oh, that's great. So we're several years deep now into our One Fleet initiative. All of our shops are 100% certified. Can you talk a little bit about what fleet reliability and less road calls and the service that we're providing to the customers and what that means for our drivers from an engagement standpoint?
Yeah, so we start with safety. And I have a family and I'm on the road every morning and every evening, and I pull up next to trucks and wonder how they're maintained, right? And really from the point of view that if they're not, it's a really heavy piece of equipment that could really injure a lot of people. So most of what we focus One Fleet around is on safety and reliability. We've seen significant improvement in safety and reliability, and we measure that in a couple of ways. Obviously, one, we're in a business, so we measure the cost, right? But we measure the cost through indicators that tell us the health of the fleet. And health meaning number of breakdowns on a route, number of times at door traffic, which is when a driver pulls up to the shop pre-route, and road calls. And those things are impactful to our business. They're not safe for the driver. If the truck were to break down en route for some specific reason, the driver has to react. And we don't want that, right? When it goes out in the morning, it should come back in the evening, and we're seeing a lot more of that. Our health metrics are all green as I sit here today. Hopefully they stay that way. But we're seeing the results of One Fleet significantly improve. I would say in the last probably 12 to 18 months, it's much better. Reliability and comfort for the driver is also important. So these guys and gals are doing this for 12 hours a day, and that is their home away from home. So our job as maintenance professionals is to make sure that the house that they're in is comfortable and suitable and has air conditioning and working seats, right. And all those things. So we don't, when we look at evaluating a truck, it comes into our goal is to make it go out looking the same way, and that's interior and exterior. So one fleet is the program that serves as a foundation for us to do that.
So one fleet is a program benefit for drivers, obviously. What are some of the benefits for the technicians?
One fleet goes from the cleanliness of the truck all the way through the performance of the components. Clean trucks are easy to work on. Trucks that have been maintained at the proper level through PM programs and I would say quality preventive maintenance programs break down less often. So the work that a tech is required to do is less major than what it would have been, let's say, 5-10 years ago. One fleet also puts in standard operating procedures. So each tech in every shop in any division that you go to is working the same way. So that consistency of effort and the consistency of process, there's not a question on how they're supposed to do it anymore. That continuity is comfortable for them, and they're more productive, and they're working on trucks that are in better shape.
So Dan, great conversation. Appreciate all the work that you and your team are doing in and around fleet. You know, obviously from a greenhouse gas perspective, fleet represents a significant impact for our overall company, and the great work that you guys are doing, not only with alternative fuels, but in the shops and some of the innovation that we have in and around some of our oil and tire programs is just outstanding. So appreciate all the work that you guys are doing to advance the sustainability efforts of the company. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.